Good morning. We begin with breaking news on the wild weather right now lashing parts of the country. We have a team of reporters in Victoria and New South Wales. First to Victoria, though, where there have been destructive storms overnight. Mimi Becker is in Traralgon in Gippsland, one of the hardest hit areas. Mimi, entire streets have been evacuated now.
An evacuation order has just been issued for the low-lying areas of Traralgon, and this is one of those streets. We can see the SES is here preparing to evacuate some people, and the water is coming right up. We've got some people walking out here, 2 dogs and a child. This is similar to scenes we've been seeing all morning here in Tennyson Street in Traralgon. Locals here were expecting around 100 millimetres of rain overnight, and the local creek has kept rising all morning. It's around 5.76 metres at the moment, which is a major flood level, and it is still rising here this morning now. For these residents who are getting out, a lot of the people in this street, they have already left, with locals helping each other on boats this morning. We saw a 6-week-old baby evacuated, lots of cats, lots of dogs, and the SES and police rescue crews in full flight. We spoke to some of the residents on how they think this flood compares to others, and they are concerned.
Really overwhelmed. Yeah, obviously we woke up this morning and had waterfront views, and yeah, just glad that we got out. Our neighbours, Helen and Whip, helped us on the little boat, which we're really, really grateful for.
This is the biggest one. Yeah, normally it only gets up to about here in this street, but it's much higher now.
They said it was once in 100 years.
The South and West Gippsland regions are expected to have been the hardest hit areas as part of this flood. There are currently 13 flood warnings in place across the state, and while the sun is shining now, there is more rain predicted and the rivers can still keep rising. Mark?
OK, Mimi, thank you. Well, let's go straight to Maggie Rayworth next in the Dandenong Ranges. Maggie, what damage are you seeing there?
Well, Mark, thousands of trees are down, power lines are falling, houses have been crushed by trees, and there is flooding right across the state. Now, overnight, the SES has received around 4,000 calls for help just in the last 24 hours. There is a clean-up underway right now. Now, here in the Dandenong Ranges, this is one of the hardest hit areas in the state, and here there are trees down every few metres. Now, in terms of power outages, it's expected up to 200,000 people were affected by last night's power outages. Believed that could be one of the state's biggest power outages in history. Now, in terms of houses that have been crushed by trees, we spoke to a family earlier today, and they say they were lucky the tree didn't land on the bedroom where their children were sleeping. Now, we're also hearing that that house could crush altogether by the weight of that tree that's still there. Now, we're hearing today that people need to stay off the roads. The advice is to not leave the home unless they really need to. There's still a very high risk of falling trees. And also, Mark, the SES are also urging people to remain vigilant today, but also to remain patient as they're still receiving a high volume of calls.
OK, Maggie, thank you. Well, let's go north now, and an Antarctic chill is hanging over New South Wales, and it could see Sydney shiver through its coldest day in 25 years. It comes as parts of the state wake up to a winter whiteout, with snow blanketing alpine regions and regional towns. Laura Tunstall is at Katoomba in the Blue Mountains for us this morning. Laura, what's it like there?
Well, it's very cold. It has been snowing since 6:30 this morning, and you can see behind me it has transformed some of these towns in the upper Blue Mountains into an absolute winter wonderland. We've got kids here who are tobogganing. If they don't have a toboggan, then they're using the next best thing, a boogie board or a piece of cardboard. Now, of course, we've seen these snowfalls in the higher levels of the Blue Mountains. Katoomba, Blackheath have all been blanketed by snow this morning. Also further west, the towns of Orange, Bathurst and Oberon have also been receiving pretty significant falls, and the snow is currently staying here on the ground. We spoke to some people. It's not just locals who are out here enjoying the snow. We've also seen people travelling from Sydney west to catch a sight of the white stuff.
It's amazing. I finished work at 6 a.m. and I've come straight here.
Second week of June. This is like crazy. Couldn't miss out on it.
It's been a lot of years. I don't think I've seen it since about 96, but yeah, it's very nice to look at.
Now, on our ski fields, Perisher and Thredbo have seen falls of more than half a metre, an absolutely bumper start to the ski season. Certainly comes just ahead of the long weekend as well. I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who'll be taking advantage of that. As for Sydney, well, we're certainly feeling the cold there as well. They're predicting a top of just 11 degrees today, and if that happens, it will actually be the coldest day in Sydney in 25 years. As for this snow, it is expected to continue throughout the day. So certainly more falls to come, and I'm sure a lot of people will be heading west to catch a glimpse of it, Mark.
I'm sure they will. Laura, thank you. Well, health authorities in 3 states are on alert this morning after a Melbourne woman escaped lockdown, travelled through New South Wales and into Queensland while infected with COVID-19. Live to Sophie Upcroft on the Sunshine Coast. Sophie, have there been any confirmed cases linked to this woman?
There has been, Mark, one new confirmed case, and it will come as little surprise that it is in fact the 44-year-old Melbourne woman's husband who originally tested negative and has since tested positive after spending days in the car with her, travelling thousands of kilometres after they escaped Melbourne lockdown on July 1, driving through Victoria, New South Wales and then into Queensland. Now, that woman has indicated to health authorities that she was symptomatic during this time. Therefore, several exposure sites have been exposed here in Queensland. They include shops, businesses and cafes. Another 11 sites have been exposed in regional New South Wales. Now, locals there and shop owners here are furious about this couple's behaviour.
Bitterly disappointed, actually quite disgusted, because I think it's an incredibly un-Australian thing to do. We've looked after ourselves, we've managed so well, and then people can just ruin it for everyone. We've just got over a flood. We've had 3 years of drought, we've kept our communities safe, and now this rubbish.
The impact that you have on people and adversely just by not following the rules, huge. 4 staff members, no pay for 2 weeks because you just wanted to dodge the border.
The Chief Health Officer has confirmed that the serology results for both of these positive cases have returned, and that they indicate that it is likely that both of these cases are in the later stages of their illness, which means that they are likely to be less infectious. Therefore, authorities are taking a conservative approach, and they are confident that we can contain a potential outbreak.
Usually when we have an outbreak, I require hospital, aged care facilities, disability care accommodation facilities and prisons, if there are any in that locality, to go into lockdown. I don't believe the risk is such that we need to do that for this particular outbreak at this stage.
Locals are turning out in their thousands across the Sunshine Coast to get tested, as you can see here at this drive-through clinic in Caloundra. Now, police and traffic control have actually had to be brought in to control the sheer number of people that are coming through these sites. Police are urging anyone who is coming to these clinics to be patient and to be responsible, while health authorities are urging anyone who has any symptoms or who has been to any of those exposure sites to get tested. Mark?
OK, Sophie, thank you. In just a couple of hours, Scott Morrison will board a plane to Singapore, where he'll meet for talks with Prime Minister Lee on his way to the G7 summit in the UK. Live now to federal politics reporter Fiona Willan in Canberra. Fee, what is on the agenda for the two leaders tonight?
Well, Mark, we know one thing they'll talk about is a potential travel bubble. So Australia already has a deal for quarantine-free travel with New Zealand. Scott Morrison has flagged that Singapore could be the next in line. It's hoped some progress will be made on that front when the two leaders meet this evening. They will also discuss military cooperation and regional security. But it's actually another meeting over regional security that's caused a bit of a stir today. So Defence Minister Peter Dutton and Foreign Minister Marise Payne spoke with their Japanese Japanese counterparts. And Japan backed Australia in its fight against China's economic coercion and what they described as destabilising behaviour in the region. Now, that's led to an angry response from the Chinese Foreign Ministry. It's accused Japan and Australia of playing up the so-called China threat, also suggesting they were wantonly smearing and attacking China. This was the Prime Minister on the radio a short time ago speaking about that relationship.
Be very happy to speak to them on any occasion. Those opportunities are provided to China. At this point, they're choosing not to take those up. As I said yesterday, we're keen to work with countries all around the world, particularly in our own region. We're for a free and open Indo-Pacific.
So this has set the scene for some rather interesting talks at the G7 in the UK. The PM will make his way there tomorrow, so it's a very quick stopover in Singapore. Mark?
Fiona Willen in Canberra, thank you. Well, Blues supporters have woken up with a smile on their faces after a record-breaking win against Queensland in State of Origin Game 1. The series opener also made history as the first Origin game to be played in a regional city. Adam Hegarty joins us live now from Townsville. And Adam, it's a lot quieter there this morning.
It is, Mark, a lot more sombre here in North Queensland. And look, perhaps this is rubbing salt into the wounds a little bit. Townsville having to clean up from this huge event they managed to put on such short notice. These guys, maybe not so much with a spring in their step. And as you say, it's a far cry from what we saw here last night. That Flinders Street party, it was an incredible atmosphere. 27,559 fans, pretty small normally when you consider an Origin crowd, but here in Townsville, this city is the biggest footy crowd it had ever experienced. Mostly Maroons fans, a sprinkle of Blues fans. Sadly, the Maroons couldn't get it done for them. We were there this morning as they were leaving the hotel. They were looking pretty sombre themselves late last night. In the rooms, we caught up with the captain, Daly Cherry Evans.
Obviously, to rock up and play like we did tonight, we've got a few things wrong, not just the execution tonight, but probably in the way we prepared. So, got a bit of time to think about it, but I think we've got the right people to fix it.
Mark, they'll have to. Game 2 in Brisbane coming up.